Wedam Esquire is joining me. Dennis, it's always good to have you join me here. But what more do we know about this latest from CHRAJ?
Well, so Alfred, this complaint before CHRAJ had to do with some observations that a civil society group had made in respect of some procurement processes that GRA had done in respect of some vehicles. GRA had contracted 3 companies to procure some vehicles for them. It was the observation of this civil society group that these 3 companies that were contracted, they could not find the registered addresses of some of those companies. That is to say, if an address was provided in the correspondence between GRA and that company as being the registered office address of that company, if you trace that address, it will lead you to a place where you will not find that office.
Right.
So, for instance, if you provided an office address like TV3 here at Disawe Kanda, then you come here, you don't find this office space.
Yeah.
That's a typical example. So that was one of the issues for which they were suspicious that there could be something more to it than just the contract. They also made the observation that, I mean, looking at the amount of money involved in the purchase of the vehicles, they were of the view that the prices may have been inflated. So that was another concern they had. Also, even with the capacity of the companies to deliver on the contract, there were also issues in question, because they also found out that the companies indeed could not deliver as was agreed, because within the time frame that they were given to deliver the vehicles, they couldn't do so. There was an extension. They still could not deliver within that extension. So that in itself raised some questions. There was also issues of tax evasion and all that. So they put the matters before CHRAJ, asking CHRAJ to look at it. It's also instructive for us to put on record that CHRAJ itself had indicated that along the line when they took assumed jurisdiction over the matter, they got into the process of investigating. Then the lead convener for this particular civil society group, the organization, served them a notice of withdrawal. That is to say, they wanted to withdraw the complaints. Now, per the rules of law, as applies to the office of CHRAJ, they cannot on their own investigate a matter unless somebody petitions or complaints. That could either be orally or written. Now, it raises the question as to whether the withdrawal of that complaint brings the matter to an end. So CHRAJ had to take a decision as to whether to proceed or not. In the view of CHRAJ, they had already gone to an advanced stage in dealing with the matter. And then again, it was their view that this was not just a matter that the complainants alone had an interest. It was a matter of public interest, for which they took the view that they needed to proceed with it. So they did all the necessary interviews with all those who matter, and they got all the necessary documents in aiding that investigation. Now they had to answer questions as to the other issue, which I didn't mention, is the fact that they also raised issues as to the kind of procurement that was used. Because the complainant said it was a restrictive tendering process. But as CHRAJ would find out, it was actually a single source, or what we commonly call the sole sourcing, which CHRAJ had identified. That's what you see as one of the key findings that CHRAJ made, in that the commission found the GRA used a single source mode for the procurement. Now, the question of whether the companies indeed had capacity or not, CHRAJ made the findings that, yes, the companies did not possess the requisite competence to carry out a contract of such magnitude, and that the companies were unqualified to be engaged for public procurement because they had no evidence to show fulfillment of tax and social security obligations. As this also shows, the companies indeed could not deliver as was expected under the contract, because even with the extensions, they could not still deliver the required number of vehicles. Per CHRAJ's estimation, that the vehicles that were procured from one of the companies named at Renault Motors were actually inflated, as was the observation by these complainants or the civil society group. And that resulted in a financial loss to the state in the sum of $826,551 United States dollars. Now, there were also the issues that have to do with allegations of fraud. CHRAJ, in its findings, says that yes, there was a blatant disregard for procurement rules, fraudulent misrepresentations, and lack of due diligence which led the commission to conclude that the respondent in this matter is the former GRA Commissioner General that engaged in fraud and corruption. Now, the issues that had to do with the tax component, that the 3 companies had not paid tax in full in full as required by the tax, and this was as of the date of the complaint. There were other findings, which now had to do with the locations of the company,
Absolutely.
and that's where it gets, yes, very interesting. That, for instance, failed investigations to verify allegations that neither Telino Ghana Limited or Rajel Motor and Trading Company Limited had business offices. Now, this is it. Telino was supposed to be operating, as was provided in their address, at SCC Yard at Abelemkpe. That was their listed business address. When they went there, they were not existing. They rather found other companies which were operating there. Those companies told them they were unaware of the existence of this company.
I see.
However, the CEO explained that they had relocated to Burma camp. When they later called the CEO to visit in the Burma camp, he said he was unavailable for that visit. For Rono Motors, Google Map tracking on the listed address led to investigators to an uncompleted building. The CEO said the uncompleted building will serve as their showroom. He also told the investigators he was unavailable to lead them to the corporate office, which he says was at Abelemkpe.
I see.
The CEO's lawyers repeated the same information. For this particular company, they were supposed to be located. They could not even be located at all. The MD said the office that they had rented, the rent had expired, and they were looking for a new space. In fact, he did indicate that rent in Accra was so expensive they couldn't afford the rent in Jowolu. So they were looking for a place. So that's they couldn't find. The conclusion is that the companies did not have the registered address contrary to the law. So these are some of the findings that CHRAJ made, on which they made those particular recommendations, including recommendation for prosecution in respect of the former GRA boss and then those other companies.
He was also having to face questions from the OSP as well. So Reverend Amishadai is not having it easy, is it?
Not at all.
Adam Sanano is still with us. A very complex and convoluted web of this suspicion of corruption. Now, this matter of procurement corruption we've seen over time, and hearing this after CHRAJ's investigation, how does this strike you? How are the coming days going to look like for you?
Well, I took note of 2 things. One, that part of the report said that the commissioner could not escape liability or culpability, which seemed to suggest that even though he himself may not have been directly involved in these matters, he has overall responsibility, which is correct. Now, it makes me want to think through the systems and who else was directly involved, especially when it came to the due diligence issues, and what systems or mechanisms we should be reviewing. Because you have procurement, you have legal, that ought to be doing due diligence, that ought to be following the laws as we know them, and the systems are supposed to be such that at the end of the day, they give value to the Ghanaian. So on one hand, and by the way, I think Reverend Dr. Amishadai has retired, if I'm right, because at the point at which I thought there was this debate at Parliament whether he wasn't already exceeded the age or something like that. So I'm not even quite sure the value of saying that a recommendation that he should not have public service for the next 5 years, how it translates. Critically, obviously, he still has the right to challenge these issues. So I think that, in my view, we need some more information on what happened at the operational level for these things to go wrong, who was involved, and what could have been done differently. Those are my initial thoughts.
I thank you very much for this, and we'll see how the coming days will look like. Edam Sano is the co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. We're back after